Today we're going to be talking about timelines. We've already started about talking about different settlers coming to the same area and when they came and who was there first. Timelines are a great way for us to organize that information. So we're going to talk about timelines and the history of America. But before we get to timelines and the history of America, let's look at a timeline of a period of history you may be familiar with. Let's look at a Louisiana timeline, okay? So this is a timeline of Louisiana, particularly Louisiana settlers. So, of course, first come the Native Americans, all right? Then we have De Soto coming from Spain, La Salle coming from France. Remember that we talked about them last time. Then we have African settlers, the Cajuns, we have Asian settlers. We have Latino settlers. Now, the way a timeline helps us organize this information is it tells us what order it happened in. So we know that the farther left we are, the earlier we are in history. Native Americans happened first, then Spain, then France. Africans arrived, okay? Cajuns. So being able to read information from a timeline will help us answer questions like we see on part 1. So part 1 asks us which settler group was the first to arrive. And so we look all the way furthest to the left and see it's the Native Americans. The first settlers in Louisiana were the Native Americans. Then we'd have to look back for that second part, and we look for the two settler groups that arrived during the 1700s. Now, remember our timeline yesterday had different markers at different years? This doesn't really have that, so we're going to have to look at individual dates. So right now I'm 1600, so I have to go higher. 1700s is the Africans. 1700s is the Cajuns. That's too high, that's too high. Ooh, 1700s is New Orleans is founded. Okay, so it's asking me two settler groups. African slaves are a settler group. I know that they came to settle because they were forced to. The Cajuns came and they were kind of forced to. They were kicked out of their homeland and they came to be around other French people. Thanks, La Salle. And New Orleans was founded. But New Orleans isn't really a group. New Orleans is a city. So I don't think it's a settler group. So I think the two answers there are Africans and Cajuns. The two groups who arrived in the 1700s were the Cajuns and the Africans. Now we need to look at which two groups arrived most recently. That actually might be kind of the most interesting. Maybe people don't know about the groups that arrived most recently, okay? So let's go to the end of our timeline. And the last two we see are Asian settlers arriving in the 1900s, came from Vietnam and other places. And in the 2000, Latino settlers also came to settle in Louisiana. So that gives us some more information that we can get from this timeline. The two most recent settler groups are the Latino and Asian settlers. Great. I think that we're getting pretty good with timelines. I think we're ready to create a timeline. So on your timeline, on your worksheet, you're given a list of events. They're out of order though, so you have to put them in order in the correct spot on the timeline. Now, I'm going to help you out for the first one, only the first one. The first one does happen to be first. It's the earliest date. The lowest number is the earliest date. Columbus and the Spanish sailed to America in 1492. Okay, Columbus, remember, first European to come and open up exploration. Now, 1492. That tells me I'm in the 1400s, but this is all 1400s up to 1500, right? Until you get to 1500, you're still in the 1400s. So 1400, 1450 is the halfway, 1500. But so just before 1500. And when you're making your timeline, only with that underlined part. I don't want you to write me a whole story. So just write the underlined part, Columbus, in 1492. 1492, high in the 1400s, almost in the 1500s, but not quite. So you see on the timeline, it's placed right before 1500. All right, so I have Columbus on my timeline. You will put Columbus on your timeline, as well as all the others. Now, again, I didn't put them in order. Look at the dates, okay? Don't mess yourself up, okay? Now, you're going to finish making this timeline. You're also going to have more practice making a timeline after this. You may have to, you're asked to add some dates to the timeline. Just see where you can find room, okay? Do what you can. All right, and I will see you next time.